There's something fascinating happening right now when you look at the Toronto Blue Jays, and it all revolves around one name that keeps echoing louder every passing moment. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. When you stop and really think about how this entire situation could have unfolded differently, it almost feels surreal. Not too long ago, there was genuine uncertainty in the air. Fans were questioning everything, wondering if the franchise cornerstone would actually commit long-term or if the organization would be forced into a completely different direction. And now, looking back, it's wild how quickly things can shift in baseball. Because let's be honest, there was a very real scenario where Vladimir Guerrero Jr. doesn't sign early. He lets things play out, heads into the offseason, and suddenly the Blue Jays are facing one of the biggest what-ifs in recent memory. Imagine that timeline for a second. You potentially lose key pieces, priorities shift overnight, and instead of building around your superstar, you're scrambling to replace him. That's not just a roster adjustment. That's an identity crisis for a team trying to stay competitive in a league that punishes hesitation. And what makes this even more intense is how everything unfolded after that moment. If you take his performances, especially under pressure, it completely changes the conversation. There were always questions surrounding him throughout his career. Could he deliver when it mattered most? Could he step up when the lights got brighter? Those doubts didn't just fade away, they got completely erased. He answered every single one of them in explosive fashion. And that's what makes this whole contract situation even more fascinating in hindsight. Because now you're not just talking about a great player, you're talking about someone entering the peak of his powers. That's the part that should excite fans the most. He's not declining. He's not plateauing, he's evolving. And when you combine that with the security of a long-term deal, it creates a foundation that most teams dream of but rarely achieve. The Blue Jays didn't just secure talent, they secured stability. And in today's game, that's priceless. At the same time, there's this underlying layer of pressure that comes with it. When you commit to a player at that level, everything starts to revolve around him. Expectations rise, not just individually, but for the entire team. It's no longer about potential, it's about results. And that's where things get really interesting, because now the conversation shifts toward what comes next. How does he build on what he's already done? How does he elevate his game even further? You can already see the direction he's heading. There's a clear push toward becoming a more complete offensive force. It's not just about consistency anymore, it's about dominance. The kind of dominance that changes games on its own. There's a growing sense that he's capable of delivering even more power, even more impact. And if that happens, it completely reshapes how opposing teams approach every single at-bat against him. But here's where it gets even deeper. When you look at the roster around him, things aren't exactly the same as before. Pieces have moved, roles have shifted, and that means responsibility increases. He's not just another star in the lineup, he is the centerpiece. The guy everyone looks to when the game is on the line. And that kind of role demands evolution, not just physically, but mentally as well. There's also this interesting balance between maintaining what already works and pushing for something greater. Because his ability to hit for average has always been one of his strengths. But now, there's this growing expectation for more power production. That trade-off is something that could define his next phase. If he sacrifices a bit of average for a significant boost in power, the overall impact could be massive. And that's the kind of shift that can elevate a player from elite to truly unstoppable. At the same time, durability becomes a huge factor. Being available game after game is part of what makes great players legendary. And with the flexibility in today's game, especially with the designated hitter role, there's an opportunity to keep him fresh while still maximizing his presence in the lineup. That kind of strategic usage could end up being a game changer over the course of a long season. And then there's the bigger picture, the one that goes beyond individual stats. What does all of this mean for the team's future? Because when you lock in a player like this, you're not just thinking about today, you're thinking about years down the line. You're building something piece by piece with the expectation that it leads to something greater. Championships become the goal, not just playoff appearances. It's also impossible to ignore how different the financial side of things could have looked. If he had waited, If he had taken that risk and gone into free agency after delivering those high-level performances, the price tag could have skyrocketed to another level entirely. Teams across the league would have lined up, ready to offer unimaginable deals just to bring him in. And that kind of bidding war changes everything. Instead, the Blue Jays acted when they needed to. They avoided the chaos, avoided the uncertainty, and in doing so, they may have saved themselves from an even bigger commitment down the road. That decision alone could end up being one of the most important moves the organization has made in years, especially when you consider how the market continues to evolve. And now, with all of that behind them, the focus shifts entirely to what happens on the field. Because expectations aren't just high, they're sky high. Fans aren't just hoping for improvement, they're expecting it. They're expecting growth, production, and most importantly, moments. The kind of moments that define seasons and create lasting memories. What makes this even more exciting is the feeling that we haven't seen the best version of him yet. That's the scary part for the rest of the league. Because if this is just the beginning of his prime, then what comes next could be something truly special, something that pushes him into a completely different conversation when it comes to the best players in the game right now. And as all of this builds up, there's still so much left to unpack when it comes to how this team is going to shape itself moving forward, especially when you start looking at the surrounding pieces and how they fit into this evolving dynamic. As you start looking beyond just his individual trajectory, the conversation naturally shifts toward how the rest of the roster adapts around him, because this is where things can either come together beautifully or fall short of expectations. A player like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can carry a lineup for stretches, but baseball has always been a game that demands balance. You need contributions from different spots, especially when the season stretches across so many games and momentum can swing at any moment. That dynamic creates a fascinating challenge. Pitchers will adjust, strategies will evolve, and suddenly every at-bat becomes a chess match. He's going to see fewer pitches to hit, more careful approaches, and situations where patience becomes just as important as power. That's where growth really shows up, not just in the numbers, but in the way he handles those moments. The ability to take a walk, extend an inning, or trust the hitter behind him becomes just as valuable as launching a ball into the stands. At the same time, there's an undeniable sense of anticipation surrounding what his statistical output could look like over a full season in this new phase. There's a strong belief that his power numbers are due for a jump, especially considering what he's shown in high-pressure environments recently. When a player demonstrates that kind of capability on big stages, it's hard not to imagine that translating into a more aggressive, confident approach during the regular season. But it's not just about hitting more home runs. It's about the overall offensive profile evolving into something more dangerous. If he manages to combine that power surge with his already impressive ability to make contact, the result is a hitter who can impact the game in multiple ways. And that's the kind of player who forces opposing teams to completely rethink their game plan from the very first inning. There's also the mental side of things, which often doesn't get as much attention, but plays a massive role in sustained success. Carrying the expectations of franchise isn't something every player can handle. But so far, he's shown signs of embracing that responsibility rather than shying away from it. The energy, the intensity, the visible desire to compete at the highest level, all of that contributes to a presence that goes beyond statistics. And when you have that kind of presence leading your team, it starts to influence the clubhouse as well. Younger players look up to it, veterans feed off it, and suddenly there's a shared belief that something bigger is possible. That belief can be the difference between a team that competes and a team that contends. It's subtle, but over the course of a season, it becomes incredibly powerful. Another layer to all of this is how the evolving landscape of baseball could impact not just him, but the entire organization. Conversations around financial structures, roster building, and long-term planning are becoming more prominent across the league. Teams are constantly trying to find that perfect balance between spending and sustainability, and having a player locked in at a high-value deal adds both stability and complexity to that equation. Because while it guarantees you a superstar presence, It also forces the front office to be even more precise with the rest of the roster. Every decision matters more. Every addition, every development, every adjustment carries extra weight. And that's where strong management can make a significant difference, especially when expectations are as high as they are right now. Still, despite all the complexities, there's a sense of reassurance that comes with knowing you have a player capable of changing the course of a game at any moment. That kind of confidence isn't easily replaced, and it gives the team a foundation to build on, even when things don't go perfectly. It's the type of advantage that can keep a team competitive even during challenging stretches. At the same time, fans are already looking ahead, imagining what this era could become if everything aligns the right way. The combination of talent, timing, and opportunity creates a window that feels wide open, but also incredibly fragile. In sports, those windows don't stay open forever, and maximizing them becomes the ultimate goal. There's also an interesting element when you consider how his performances in international competitions and high-stakes moments have elevated his reputation. Those flashes of brilliance don't just stay isolated. They carry over into how he's perceived moving forward. Opponents respect it, fans expect it, and it raises the overall standard he's held to every time he steps onto the field. And that's where things start to build even more momentum. Because once a player reaches that level of expectation, every game becomes part of a larger narrative. Every swing, every hit, every key moment adds another layer to what could eventually define his legacy. It's not just about putting up good numbers anymore. It's about delivering when it matters most over and over again. As the season approaches and the anticipation continues to grow, there's a feeling that something significant is on the horizon. Not just for him as an individual, but for the entire team. The pieces are there, the potential is undeniable, and now it all comes down to execution. How they handle pressure, how they adapt to challenges, and how they capitalize on opportunities will ultimately determine how far they can go. And with so many moving parts still unfolding, there's plenty left to explore, especially when the conversation starts to shift toward broader topics in the sport and how upcoming competitions could evolve to match the intensity and excitement that fans are now craving. But before we move forward, don't forget to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest news about the Los Angeles Dodgers. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the news, so drop a comment below. In what is rapidly becoming the most talked about rumor across Major League Baseball circles, whispers suggest that the Los Angeles Dodgers could be orchestrating a blockbuster move to acquire ace left-hander TARIK SKUBAL. The speculation has ignited excitement and skepticism in equal measure, as insiders hint that the deal is being framed as a bold push to reinforce a championship core built around global superstar Shohei OHTANI. According to those familiar with the situation, the Dodgers front office is exploring aggressive options to solidify their rotation, viewing SKUBAL as a perfect complement to OHTANI's unique two-way presence. While OHTANI continues to command attention both on the mound and at the plate, the addition of a dominant strikeout-heavy pitcher like SKUBAL could elevate the team into an even more formidable October force. The rumor negotiations are said to be complex, with the Detroit Tigers reluctant to part ways with one of their most valuable arms. SKUBAL has emerged as a frontline starter with electric stuff and composure well beyond his years, making him a prized asset in any potential trade scenario. For Detroit, moving him would signal a significant shift in direction, something that has left league executives questioning how serious these talks truly are. Still, the Dodgers have never shied away from headline-grabbing moves, and the possibility of pairing SKUBAL with OHTANI has fueled a wave of speculation about a new super rotation taking shape in Los Angeles. Around the league, rival teams are monitoring the situation closely, aware that such a deal could tilt the competitive balance. For now, nothing is confirmed, but the noise is growing louder. If the rumors hold any truth, baseball could be on the verge of witnessing one of the most impactful trades in recent memory, one that might redefine expectations for a franchise already built to win. That's all for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay up to date with exclusive news about the Los Angeles Dodgers, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We always appreciate your comments and feedback. See you in the next video.